Two women boarded a private jet for what they believed would be a glamorous weekend with a man they thought they could trust. 10 days later, their bodies were discovered in the bushes beside a deserted airfield, discarded, hidden, and stripped of their identities. What happened in those missing hours is a story that unimaginable wealth tried to erase, and a reminder of the danger that comes when ordinary people cross paths with power that answers to no one. Welcome back to True Crime Retold, where we uncover cases that test everything you think you know about human nature. If you find our deep dives as gripping as we do, please take a second to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new case. Now, let's get into it. Maya Collins had the kind of life people described as stable, the kind built slowly and carefully over years of choices, sacrifices, and routines. She grew up in a modest household in North Carolina, the oldest of 3 daughters, raised by a mother who taught her responsibility before she understood what the word meant. From a young age, Maya was the dependable one, the girl who helped her sisters with homework, who learned how to cook by watching her mother because someone had to get dinner on the table when both parents were working double shifts. She carried that sense of responsibility with her like a second skin, even when she left home for college. It was during her second year at community college that she met Ethan Collins, a quiet, soft-spoken IT student who always sat alone in the library, headphones on, typing like he was solving the world's greatest mystery. Maya admired quiet people. She admired the certainty they walked with, the way they didn't need to be loud to be present. Ethan admired her too, her ambition, her discipline, her warmth. Their first real conversation happened when Maya's laptop crashed right before an important assignment was due. Ethan fixed it in 15 minutes, barely speaking except to ask one question at a time. Maya thanked him so warmly that he blushed, and that moment was the beginning of everything. Their relationship grew slowly, calmly, like two people building a home brick by brick instead of rushing into fireworks. Ethan wasn't a man of grand gestures. He didn't write poems or plan elaborate dates, but he showed up every time. He brought her coffee during late-night study sessions, drove her to work when her car broke down, and attended her graduation, even though she insisted it wasn't a big deal. After 5 years together, they married in a small ceremony with about 40 guests and one simple vow repeated in different ways. "I'll be here." And for years they were happy, not passionately happy, not wildly happy, but quietly, peacefully happy, the kind of happiness built on routines that felt safe. Their daughter Nia was born 2 years later. From the moment Maya held her, she knew her world had changed forever. She wanted to give Nia a life where she felt chosen, protected, seen, everything Maya had promised herself as a child. But motherhood came with exhaustion no one warned her about. She worked part-time at first, balancing diaper changes with planning small events. When Nia started school, Maya's career finally began to grow. She became an event planner known for her attention to detail and her calm under pressure, the woman brides requested by name because she could fix any problem without letting anyone else feel the stress. But the more her career expanded, the more her home life stayed the same. Ethan loved her, but he was a creature of habit. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. He wasn't unkind, just unaware. He didn't notice how often Maya cried in the shower because it was the only private place she had. He didn't notice how tired she looked or how often she skipped meals because she was balancing a dozen timelines in her head. He didn't see how lonely she felt sitting beside him on the couch, both of them scrolling their phones in silence. Their marriage wasn't broken, just distant. Ethan tried in his own way, but Maya needed more than routine. She needed to feel alive again, and that loneliness, the soft, quiet kind that comes from being loved but not fully known, was the part of her life she never spoke about. Maya never had many friends growing up, but that changed the day she met Ariana Hill. Ariana was 35, single, and the kind of woman who lit up a room without trying. She had a laugh that carried across hallways and a confidence Maya envied secretly. The two met 7 years ago while working separate weddings at the same hotel ballroom. Maya was trying to calm a frantic bride who hated her centerpieces. Ariana was trying to stop a bridesmaid from drinking the champagne meant for the toast. They locked eyes across the chaos and exchanged a look that said, "We're both suffering." That was the start of everything. Within a week, they were grabbing coffee together between events. Within a month, they were working side by side. Within a year, they were each other's safe place. If Maya was the quiet river, Ariana was the ocean wave, loud, unpredictable, beautiful, and full of life. She loved dating even when it left her heart bruised. She loved adventure even when it left her tired. She loved life fiercely because she didn't want to waste any of it. Ariana grew up in a strict household where her parents had an idea of who she should be. Married at 25, kids by 27, stability by 30. When life didn't go that way, Ariana stopped trying to meet expectations and started choosing herself instead. She broke off a 3-year engagement at the last minute, moved across the country alone, and rebuilt her life brick by brick. Her independence wasn't a phase. It was survival. She and Maya complemented each other in ways no one else ever had. Maya was the steady one, the planner, the woman who researched everything twice before committing. Ariana was the spontaneous one, the woman who called Maya at midnight saying, "Get dressed, we're going out," even though they ended up sitting in a parking lot eating snacks and talking for hours instead of actually going anywhere. Ariana pushed Maya to take risks. Maya grounded Ariana when she flew too close to chaos. They weren't sisters by blood, but they were sisters in every other way that mattered. Maya trusted her with everything, her insecurities, her frustrations, her dreams, the things she didn't dare say out loud to Ethan. And Ariana protected Maya fiercely, especially on the days when Maya forgot she deserved more than exhaustion and obligation. Both women were tired of clients who demanded the impossible, tired of working 12-hour days for events people would forget in a week, tired of carrying emotional loads no one else noticed. But beneath the tiredness was something else. Longing. Ariana longed for meaning. Maya longed for excitement. Both longed for something to break the monotony of their lives. And that longing, the natural human desire for more, is what made them vulnerable. Not reckless, not naive, human. Before anything dark or tragic touched their lives, before anyone powerful ever set eyes on them, they were just two hard-working women trying to balance ambition with survival, motherhood with identity, dreams with reality. This chapter of their story wasn't about danger. It wasn't about mistakes. It was about who they were at their core, women who loved deeply, worked hard, and rarely put themselves first. Women who deserved safety, joy, and long futures. Women who had no idea how quickly life can shift from ordinary to unforgettable, to horrifying. But for now, they were just Maya and Ariana, best friends, event planners, women trying their best, and nothing in their world hinted that anything was about to change. On 24th of July 2022, Maya and Ariana were called into their office for an urgent briefing. Their company had just secured one of the most important contracts of the year, an ultra-luxury fragrance launch for an international brand known for elaborate events, celebrity ambassadors, and VIP guest lists. The regional director explained that the client wanted only the best planners on the team, and Maya's name had been specifically requested because of her reputation for flawless execution under pressure. Ariana was assigned alongside her as always. The two women worked like a perfectly synchronized machine, and their company trusted them with high-value clients whenever making a good impression was critical. They spent the next 3 weeks deep in planning mode, color palettes, lighting designs, stage layouts, floral arrangements, vendor coordination, and endless meetings. It was the kind of event that exhausted them but played to all their strengths. By the launch night, the ballroom looked breathtaking. Velvet drapes, mirrored tables, perfectly arranged candles, glass perfume pillars glowing under soft spotlights. Maya handled final checks with the audio-visual team, while Ariana ensured every model and brand speaker was ready in their designated positions. The event had just begun to fill with guests when a group of 4 impeccably dressed men entered the hall. They were tall, poised, and carried themselves with the type of quiet confidence that drew attention naturally. Their suits were tailored with subtle gold embroidery, nothing flashy, but undeniably expensive. The brand director rushed toward Maya the moment she saw them. "That's the delegation from our Gulf partners," she whispered urgently. "They represent one of the region's key investors, His Highness Sheikh Ryan Al Fahd." Maya nodded professionally and smoothed the front of her dress, preparing to greet them. She appreciated the importance of making a good impression, but had no idea why the director looked so anxious. Ariana joined her, maintaining her usual charismatic poise. Maya approached the delegation with a warm, steady voice. "Good evening. I'm Maya Collins, the coordinator for tonight's launch. Please let me know if there's anything you need." The tallest member of the delegation offered a polite nod. "We've heard you are responsible for this event. His Highness values high standards. We look forward to experiencing your work." His tone was calm and respectful. Maya guided them through the venue, explaining the design concept and schedule. The men observed everything carefully, occasionally whispering to one another in Arabic. Their expressions were unreadable, not disapproving, not overly impressed, just deeply attentive. When Maya introduced Ariana, they acknowledged her with equal politeness. Ariana smiled confidently, handling their questions with her usual charm. Maya felt a small glow of pride, seeing how well they represented their company in front of such high-status guests. Throughout the evening, the delegation stayed near the VIP section, occasionally stepping aside to take phone calls or observe the stage setup. Maya noticed how their eyes often drifted toward the organizational team, especially her and Ariana, but she assumed they were simply evaluating the professionalism of the event. After all, luxury clients tended to be meticulous. Near the end of the night, as guests began to leave and the brand executives congratulated Maya and Ariana for a flawless event, the same tall representative approached Maya once more. He reached into his inner pocket and handed her a sleek black business card etched with gold lettering. "For future collaborations," he said, "His Highness appreciates individuals who deliver excellence." Maya accepted the card politely, thanking him for attending. Ariana, the moment he walked away, nudged her with a playful grin. "Maya, you do realize you just impressed people who own half the world?" Maya rolled her eyes and laughed, slipping the card into her bag without giving it much thought. She was too exhausted to think about anything except removing her heels and getting home. A week passed. Life continued its usual rhythm of early mornings, event schedules, school drop-offs, vendor meetings, and late-night exhaustion. Maya didn't think again about the black business card in her bag. It wasn't until she checked her email late one evening that she saw a message she almost thought was spam until she opened it. The sender was listed as Office of His Highness Sheikh Ryan Al Fahd. The message was brief, elegant, and unexpectedly personal. Sheikh Ryan thanked her for coordinating the event, describing the atmosphere as refined, memorable, and executed with remarkable grace. He complimented her professionalism, her calm under pressure, and even acknowledged how smoothly Ariana handled the live segments. Maya stared at the message in disbelief. It wasn't every day that a royal took the time to personally acknowledge event staff. She forwarded the email to Ariana immediately. Ariana responded with a burst of excitement. "Maya, this is huge. Do you understand who this man is?" Maya laughed, a little shy, a little flattered. She wasn't used to such attention, not from clients, not from Ethan, and certainly not from foreign royalty. A few days later, a package arrived at her office. Inside was a luxurious perfume from Dubai, one not yet released in the U.S., along with a handwritten note. For the woman whose vision turned a room into an experience. Ariana received a similar package the next week. A different scent, a different elegant note. That was how their interaction grew, not through anything dramatic or alarming, but through small, thoughtful gestures that felt professional, respectful, and generous. Over the next few weeks, they received occasional messages, brief compliments, inquiries about their work, appreciation for their partnership. He spoke to them as though their opinions mattered, as though he valued their eye for detail and creativity. He mentioned potential collaborations, international opportunities, the possibility of handling high-profile events in the Gulf region with his team. Not promises, just suggestions, soft, flattering hints at a bigger world they might someday be part of. For Maya, who often felt invisible at home, the attention felt like a warm spotlight. For Ariana, who craved adventure, it felt like a door opening into the kind of life she always imagined for herself. Nothing about the messages felt inappropriate. Nothing felt dangerous. Nothing felt out of place. It felt like recognition, appreciation, opportunity. And that was how it began, gently, politely, without a single reason for either woman to fear anything at all. On a Thursday evening, while Maya was finishing up dinner and clearing the kitchen counters, her phone buzzed with a new voice note. She expected it to be Ariana ranting about a client, but the name on the screen made her pause. Rayan Al-Majid, the Dubai elite businessman they had grown surprisingly close to over the past several weeks. She wiped her hands and pressed play. His voice flowed through the speaker, warm, casual, almost playful. "Maya, I'm heading to Miami this weekend with a few friends. Nothing serious, just relaxing, good food, sunshine. You and Ariana should come. It'll be fun. I want good company." No business terms, no project discussions, no professional expectations. Just a man who had grown friendly with them, inviting them out. Maya blinked, unsure how to process it. It wasn't inappropriate on the surface. He wasn't asking for anything romantic, nothing secretive or alarming. But it wasn't professional either. It was a hangout, a luxurious one. She played it again, hearing the casual confidence in his tone. She forwarded it to Ariana without a word. Ariana called immediately. "Maya! Oh, my God!" Maya laughed nervously. "Ariana, it's strange, right? I mean, it's just a hangout." A hangout on a private jet with a Dubai elite businessman who clearly enjoys talking to us. Maya, this is next level. "But it's not work," Maya whispered, almost to herself. "Exactly," Ariana said. "For once, something in our lives is not work." Maya leaned against the counter, her heart caught between guilt and curiosity. She wasn't oblivious. This invitation wasn't being offered to every event planner. It was personal. It was flattering. It was tempting in a way that frightened her just a little. Not because she felt unsafe, nothing about Rayan had ever felt unsafe, but because she knew this wasn't something she could explain honestly to Ethan. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but she wasn't doing something entirely right either. Ariana sensed her hesitation immediately. "Look," she said, her voice softening, "we're not children. We're not stupid. We know what this is. He likes us. He likes talking to us. He wants us around. And we want a break. That's all. We're just going to Miami for 2 days. Not running away forever." Maya exhaled slowly, letting the truth settle. She did want to go. She wanted the thrill, the break, the feeling of stepping out of her boring routine. She wanted a moment where she wasn't needed by everyone around her. Rayan sent another message minutes later, almost as if he sensed the silence. "It's nothing complicated. Just come relax. You deserve to enjoy life a little." A simple sentence, a gentle push. And just like that, Maya felt her resistance weaken. Ariana texted, "We're going," Maya replied. "Yes, let's go." When they finally responded to Ryan, the excitement in his reply was instant. "Fantastic. I'll have the jet ready. Bring whatever makes you feel comfortable. I'll take care of the rest." Maya didn't know why her heart thumped at his choice of words, but she ignored it. Over the next 2 days, they prepared in their own ways. Ariana shopped. New outfits, new heels, fresh hair. Ariana treated it like an adventure, not a moral conflict. Maya took a softer approach. She chose simple dresses, basic makeup, comfortable sandals. She told herself it was just a weekend trip. Nothing romantic, nothing reckless. Just time away with a man who liked their company, a man who made them feel interesting and appreciated. When it was time to explain the trip to Ethan, Maya stuck to the simplest version of the truth. "Ariana and I are going to Miami," she said casually over breakfast. "One of our old clients invited us to spend the weekend at a networking thing." Ethan didn't question it. He rarely questioned anything Maya did. He kissed her cheek and said, "Have fun. Be safe." His trust made her chest tighten, but she swallowed it. It wasn't a lie. Not entirely. It just wasn't the full truth. Ariana told her sister she'd be gone for a friend's weekend, and no one blinked. On Saturday morning, Maya and Ariana pulled into the small private airfield, a quiet stretch of runway hidden behind tall fences and guarded entrances. It wasn't like the commercial airports they were used to. It was calmer, emptier, almost unreal in its stillness. The sky was a pale blue, the air warm, and for a moment Maya felt a flutter of excitement that drowned out her nerves. As they walked toward the private terminal doors with their overnight bags, a uniformed attendant checked their names on a tablet, then led them through a VIP entrance normally reserved for high-profile clients. Everything was polished, marble floors, minimalist decor, soft lighting. Ariana glanced at Maya with a grin that said, "We're really doing this." Maya tried to smile back, though her heartbeat had started to race. They waited only a few minutes before a staff member gestured for them to follow him through a glass corridor that opened directly onto the airfield. And there it was, the jet, sleek, silver, larger than they imagined. The polished metal reflected the sunlight like a mirror. Ariana whispered, "Jesus, this is insane." As they approached the stairs, the door was already open, and 3 men were visible inside. The first man seated near the entrance made Maya's steps falter for just a second. It was Ryan Al-Majid, dressed in a crisp white kandura, the traditional Emirati attire, paired with a gold-trimmed bisht that suggested wealth, status, and old-world elegance. He looked different from the casual voice notes and friendly messages, more powerful, more composed, more like a man used to being obeyed. He stood as they approached, offering a warm smile. "Maya, Ariana, welcome." His voice was soft, smooth, practiced, the kind of voice that made people feel chosen. Standing behind him was an older man, also dressed traditionally, but with a face carved by age, wisdom, and something unreadable. Ryan introduced him with a slight gesture. "This is Khalid, a close friend. Think of him like an uncle." Khalid didn't smile. He simply nodded once, his eyes assessing Maya and Ariana with a quiet intensity, as if he was studying them rather than greeting them. Maya felt that gaze settle heavily on her skin, but she brushed it off. Ariana squeezed her arm subtly, letting her know she felt it too. Further inside the jet were 2 other men, nothing like Ryan or Khalid. These men wore ripped jeans, tank tops, thick chains, and full-sleeve tattoos. They looked rough, hardened, like men who spent more time in nightclubs and backrooms than business meetings. They didn't fit the polished luxury of the jet at all. They looked like security, or something else entirely. One was leaning back with his feet on a leather chair, scrolling through his phone. The other was fixing a drink at the bar, arms covered in dark ink, muscles tense, jaw clenched. They didn't acknowledge Maya or Ariana, but both of them looked up, for just a second, and those brief glances made Maya's stomach tighten. Ariana shifted slightly behind her, trying not to look intimidated. Ryan noticed their hesitation and chuckled lightly. "Don't mind them," he said. "Security. They look rougher than they are." Maya smiled politely, though the unease lingered. There was no official crew in sight, no pilot greeting them, no flight attendant. Just these four men, and a jet that suddenly felt too quiet. The women exchanged a quick glance, one that said everything. "Do you feel weird?" "A little." "Should we go back?" "No, we're already here." "Come," Ryan said, stepping aside and motioning toward the plush interior. "Make yourselves comfortable. This is your weekend." Ariana walked in first, confidence leading her forward. Maya followed, telling herself not to overthink it. After all, Ryan had been nothing but respectful for weeks. Maybe this was just how private flights worked. Maybe the men were just part of his entourage. The jet interior was stunning. Cream leather seats, gold accents, polished wood paneling, ambient lighting. It felt like stepping into a luxury hotel suite floating in the air. Maya couldn't deny the thrill that ran through her. It was surreal, dreamlike. A world she had only seen on social media. Ryan helped them store their bags, gesturing toward the seats across from him. Ariana beamed as she sat down. "This is unreal," she whispered. Maya nodded, trying to steady the strange mix of excitement and discomfort swirling inside her. Ryan took his seat across from them, watching them with a soft, amused expression. Khalid sat behind him, folding his arms, silent as a shadow. The tattooed men remained in the back, one still scrolling, the other pouring himself another drink. Maya inhaled slowly. Everything looked perfect, everything looked expensive, but beneath the luxury was a tension she couldn't name. A small whisper in her gut that something about the group on this jet didn't match. Still, they were here now, and they had accepted the invitation. Ariana nudged her knee with a grin, as if to say, "Enjoy it." So Maya smiled back, pushed the unease down, and told herself the same thing. Enjoy it. The jet door closed, the stairs rose, the engines hummed to life, and Maya and Ariana sat side by side, excited, nervous, and trying very hard not to wonder if stepping onto this plane had been a mistake. The flight began like any other luxurious experience. The engines hummed softly, the jet climbed smoothly into the sky, and a chilled bottle of champagne appeared on the table as if by magic. One of the tattooed men, silent, expressionless, poured for everyone without a word. Ariana giggled under her breath, nudging Maya as if to say, "See? Nothing to worry about." Maya forced a smile, trying to settle into her seat. Ryan raised his glass. "To new friends," he said warmly. Khalid simply nodded, sipping slowly. The other two men didn't toast. They just watched. The first 20 minutes passed with light conversation and harmless small talk. Miami weather, travel stories, how hard they'd been working lately. Ryan was still charming, still engaging, but something in his demeanor had shifted. Subtle, hard to pinpoint. His eyes were heavier. His smile lingered too long. His voice dipped lower, slower. Maya felt it before she could explain it. A small shift, a soft drop in air pressure, a change she couldn't name but couldn't dismiss. It started casually enough. "Maya," he said suddenly, "you look tense. Come closer. Sit here." He patted the seat beside him. Ariana raised her brows at Maya, half teasing, half confused. Maya let out a polite laugh. "I'm fine here." "No," Ryan insisted gently, but with an undertone she hadn't heard before. "Come. Don't be shy." She hesitated. Ariana placed a hand on her arm. "Just go. You're overthinking." So Maya moved, not too close, but just enough to satisfy him. Ryan smiled, pleased. He leaned back, stretching his legs out comfortably, the bisht sliding slightly to reveal expensive sandals. Then he said it, almost offhandedly. "Rub my feet." Maya blinked. She thought she misheard. Ariana let out an awkward laugh, waiting for him to laugh too. He didn't. Khalid watched quietly, eyes never leaving Maya's hands. "It's a sign of respect," Rayyan added casually. "A simple gesture." Maya froze, unsure what to say. Ariana tried to lighten the mood. "Come on now, don't mess with her like that." Rayyan didn't smile. He just stared. "I'm not messing." Silence thickened in the cabin. Maya shook her head gently. I'm not comfortable with that." Rayyan didn't respond. He simply shifted his gaze to Ariana. "Then you do it." Ariana's eyes widened. "Me?" He nodded once. "Yes, you. Rub my foot." She laughed again, but the sound cracked this time. "Stop playing. That's weird." The older man, Khalid, leaned forward slightly. He wasn't joking. The tattooed man in the back, the one still scrolling on his phone earlier, suddenly stood and walked down the aisle slowly, too slowly until he was right behind Ariana's seat. Maya felt the air change instantly. Her stomach knotted. The man didn't touch them. He didn't speak. He just stood there, blocking the aisle completely. Rayyan exhaled softly, almost amused. "Ladies, relax. Don't make this awkward. Your guests, you're safe. Just cooperate." Ariana glanced at Maya. The laughter in her eyes was gone now, replaced by confusion and fear. Still, they tried to keep things normal. Maya swallowed hard. "Maybe we're misunderstanding. Maybe this is—" "Enough talking," Rayyan cut in. "Stand up." Both women froze. "Why?" Ariana asked carefully. Rayyan gave a slow, eerie smile. "Because I said so. Stand." His voice had lost all its warmth, all the softness. It was a command now, a warning. Maya's heart pounded. She could feel it in her throat. Ariana whispered, "Maya, what do we do?" Before Maya could answer, the second tattooed man rose from his seat near the bar and stepped forward, blocking the front of the cabin. They were trapped between them. No exit, no aisle, no crew. Just these four men and the sound of the engines humming beneath their feet. Rayyan sat back, fully relaxed now, legs crossed, watching them like someone watching a game he'd already won. "Stand," he repeated. "Both of you." Maya's hands trembled. Ariana's breath shook, but slowly, shakily, they stood. Rayyan's smile widened. "Good. Now take off your jackets." Maya's mind raced. Her pulse thundered. Ariana's fingers twitched at the zipper of her light denim jacket, but didn't move. "Rayyan," Maya whispered, her throat tightening, "this isn't funny." "It's not supposed to be funny," he replied calmly. "It's supposed to be obedient." Khalid finally spoke again, his voice low, deep, chilling. "Do it." Maya felt cold wash over her skin. Ariana's eyes filled with panic. The tattooed men stepped closer, silent, expressionless, blocking every possibility of escape. The champagne bubbles in Maya's glass hadn't even settled before the mood shifted from luxury to something darker, suffocating, irreversible. What had started as a glamorous weekend invite had just revealed what it really was, something they were not prepared for. And as Maya and Ariana stood frozen in fear, the door to the illusion closed for good. For a moment, Maya and Ariana stood completely still, hoping, praying that Rayyan was bluffing, that this was some twisted joke, some cultural misunderstanding, anything but what it looked like. But the second they didn't move, the tattooed man behind Ariana cracked his knuckles slowly, deliberately, the sound sharp in the small cabin. The other one smirked, rolling his shoulders, stepping just slightly closer, as if warming up for something he already knew he'd enjoy. Maya felt Ariana's hand tremble beside her. She didn't grab it. She didn't dare. Rayan watched them with a lazy, bored amusement, the champagne flute dangling from his fingers. Khalid, older, quieter, more unsettling than any of them, sat back with a small porcelain cup of tea, sipping slowly as if nothing happening in front of him was unusual or unexpected. There was no surprise on his face, no discomfort, no intervention, only observant, detached approval. That was when it hit Maya with full force. These men expected obedience, not suggestions, not cooperation, obedience. Ariana tried to speak, her voice tiny. "Rayan, please, we just want—" "Stop talking," the tattooed man growled behind her. She jumped. Maya's stomach dropped. This was no longer awkward, no longer uncomfortable. This was dangerous. Rayan leaned forward, elbow resting casually on his knee. "You need to understand something," he said, his tone low, calm, too calm. "On this plane, there is no no." The sentence felt like ice water down Maya's spine. Ariana's eyes filled with panic as the truth finally settled between them like a heavy stone. They were alone, in the sky, with men who did not allow refusal. The soft luxury of the jet no longer mattered. The designer seats, the gold accents, the champagne. It all dissolved into the background, replaced by one single reality. They had no escape. Rayan's smile sharpened. "We're being patient because you're new to this, but do not insult me by pretending you have a choice." Maya felt her throat tighten. Ariana's breath turned shaky, uneven. Rayan gestured with 2 fingers, almost casually. "Jackets." The tattooed men took 1 step closer. That single step was enough. Maya swallowed her pride, her fear, her dignity. She slowly slid her jacket off her shoulders, her hands trembling. Ariana followed seconds later, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes, but not falling. She wouldn't let them fall. She wouldn't show that level of fear. Not yet. The Sheikhs didn't say thank you. They didn't nod or smile. They simply watched, entertained, amused, as if Maya and Ariana were performing something trivial, something expected. Rayan chuckled under his breath. "See? That wasn't so hard." Khalid gave a single nod of approval, as if the women's humiliation was a predictable, almost boring step in a process he had witnessed many times before. The tattooed men relaxed slightly, but didn't move away. They remained close, too close, standing guard like walls that could breathe. Maya felt the heat rise to her face. Ariana looked down at her hands, clenching and unclenching them, her chest rising and falling too quickly. They both hoped, foolishly, that this small act of submission might satisfy the men. That maybe doing just a little would prevent things from going further. That maybe they could finish the flight and walk away, shaken but alive. The Sheikhs exchanged a glance, one filled with silent communication Maya could not decipher but immediately feared. Rayan set his empty glass on the table and stood up slowly, stretching his back. Then he looked at them with a calmness that made Maya's heart seize. "Now," he said softly, almost politely, "take off more." Silence, heavy, paralyzing, suffocating silence. Ariana's breath stopped. Maya felt her knees weaken. Rayan tilted his head when they didn't move. "Don't make this difficult." The tattooed men straightened. Khalid sipped his tea. Maya and Ariana froze, caught between terror, disbelief, and the horrifying realization that whatever came next was no longer in their control. They had crossed an invisible line the moment they stepped onto that jet. And now the men around them were tightening the trap, inch by inch, smile by smile. Rayan took a slow step forward. "Make it easy," he murmured, "or it becomes something else." Maya's heart pounded so hard it made her vision blur. Ariana whispered her name, voice breaking, but neither of them moved, neither of them spoke. They just stood there, shaking, cornered, and silently beginning to understand that the sky outside wasn't the only thing they were trapped in. The real danger was standing inches in front of them, waiting for one wrong breath. Before we continue, I just want to say, if you're still here listening to this story, thank you. Honestly, every view, every like, every subscription means the world. It tells me these stories matter to you the way they matter to me. So if you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. All right, let's get back to it. The moment Maya and Ariana didn't obey, everything in the cabin changed. The tension that had been simmering quietly finally snapped. Ryan didn't yell. He didn't repeat himself. He simply flicked his fingers toward the tattooed men, an unspoken signal the women didn't understand until it was too late. The men lunged forward. Ariana gasped, stumbling back, her hands instinctively going up in self-defense. Maya tried to run toward the aisle. But one of the tattooed men grabbed her arm and slammed her back against a seat before she could even scream. The jet was too small, too tight. There was nowhere to go. "Stop! Stop! Please!" Maya cried, but the roar of the engine swallowed her voice. The cabin, once a place of champagne and soft leather, became a trap closing in on them. The men didn't shout or curse. They didn't try to hide what they were doing. Their faces showed something far worse. Pleasure in the power, in the fear, in the helplessness of the two women who could no longer fight back. Ariana thrashed, kicking, clawing, grabbing at anything, seats, armrests, the door handle, but the older sheikh, Khalid, simply stepped forward and pressed her down with a calm, chilling certainty. He didn't even spill his tea. Maya screamed until her voice cracked. Ariana begged, twisting away, sobbing, promising anything, everything. None of it mattered. Ryan watched with amusement before joining in, smiling, laughing, speaking in a language the women didn't understand. Khalid occasionally murmured something to him, sounding almost bored, as if this were nothing more than routine. And the tattooed men? They held the women down like they'd done it before, like they'd been waiting for this moment, like their strength existed for this exact purpose. The women screamed, they begged, they cried out for help. But at 40,000 feet above the ocean, with the doors sealed and the engines roaring, no one heard them. No one ever would. The struggle went on, minutes, maybe longer. Time twisted into something slow, horrible, and endless. Their voices grew hoarse, their energy drained. Their resistance weakened until their hands stopped clawing at the seats and simply hung there, trembling. Ariana's cries faded first, breaking into soft, exhausted whimpers. Maya's body shook violently as she tried to breathe, her chest rising and falling in frantic, uneven gasps. But the jet didn't stop. The men didn't stop. The laughter didn't stop. And then, finally, the cabin grew quiet, completely quiet. No more screams, no more begging, no more struggling. The tattooed men stepped back, breathing hard but satisfied. Khalid set down his empty teacup with a soft click. Ryan adjusted his bisht, his face empty of emotion now, like everything that had just happened was a task completed. Maya lay on the cabin floor, motionless, except for the faintest rise and fall of her chest. Ariana was crumpled beside her, her eyes closed, her body still. The jet hummed steadily through the clouds, indifferent to the horror happening inside it. Ryan looked down at them with a slight tilt of his head. "See?" he murmured coldly. "It didn't have to be difficult." Khalid nodded once, as if approving a decision already made. The two women, who had boarded the jet with excitement, hope, and naive trust, no longer moved, no longer fought, no longer had a voice in what happened next. And above the clouds, surrounded by men who felt untouchable, their nightmare entered a silence far more terrifying than the screams that came before it. The silence in the cabin didn't last long. As soon as Maya and Ariana stopped moving, Ryan's calm, detached voice cut through the stillness. He didn't sound shaken or rushed. He sounded irritated, like someone dealing with an inconvenience. "Fix it," he said, waving his hand dismissively. Khalid didn't ask what he meant. Neither did the tattooed men. They understood instantly. This wasn't the first time, not even close. Maya and Ariana lay motionless on the floor, their hair spread over the polished cabin tiles, their bodies limp, their breathing nearly undetectable. Ryan didn't look at them again. He turned away, grabbed a fresh drink, and sank into one of the cream leather seats as if the night's events had simply exhausted him. The tattooed men got to work with a speed that came from experience, not panic. Their movements were efficient, practiced, emotionless. No hesitation, no discussion, no remorse. Khalid supervised quietly from his seat, arms crossed, eyes cold. He sipped his tea again as the men carried out the task, making sure the bodies could not be identified later. The process was fast, mechanical, stripped of humanity. They removed what was needed to erase identity. The eyes, certain organs, anything traceable. They didn't speak while they worked. They didn't flinch. They didn't look at the women as people, only as a problem that needed to be handled. When they were done, the bodies were lifted carefully, almost respectfully, and placed into thick industrial-grade black bags. Heavy, sealed, anonymous. The cabin fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Ryan stood over the unmoving women, his expression blank. No remorse, no hesitation. Just calculation. Khalid finally spoke, calm and cold. "This cannot remain." Ryan nodded once. "Take care of it." The tattooed men moved instantly. No questions, no emotion. Their actions were quick and practiced, the movements of men who had erased problems before. Maya and Ariana were handled with chilling efficiency, their identities stripped away, anything connecting them to the jet quietly removed. When they finished, the women were placed into thick black bags, the zippers closing with a sharp final snap. Ryan straightened his sleeves, speaking as casually as if giving business instructions. "Ensure nothing traces back." Minutes later, the jet descended toward a privately owned rural airstrip, quiet, unstaffed, surrounded by empty land. The airstrip was registered under one of Rayon's shell companies, rarely used, perfect for what they intended. The jet touched down for less than 5 minutes. The tattooed men carried the black bags down the steps, dragging them across the dirt and dropping them beside the tall grass like discarded cargo. No hesitation, no pause. Within moments, they were back inside, the door sealed, the engines roaring to life again. The jet lifted off, disappearing into the sky with the same smooth grace it had arrived, leaving behind only the silence of the empty field, and the evidence Rayon's men thought they had erased forever. For 10 days, the airstrip sat untouched. The black bags had been dragged far from the runway and pushed deep into the overgrown brush, hidden behind thick shrubs and tall grass. No one went near that part of the property. There was no reason to. It wasn't used for maintenance, it wasn't part of any walkway, and the land around it belonged to a shell company that had long been abandoned. The heat, humidity, and isolation kept everything quiet. Perfect for disposal. But on the 10th morning, a maintenance worker arrived to clear out trash that had blown across the field during a recent storm. As he walked along the fence line collecting debris, something sharp hit his nose, an unfamiliar, foul odor drifting from the wooded area beyond the grass. At first, he thought it was an animal that had died in the bushes. This wasn't unusual in rural areas, but the smell grew stronger the closer he stepped. Wrong, too strong, too heavy. Instinctively, he covered his nose with his sleeve and pushed deeper into the brush, following the scent. That's when he saw them. 2 large black industrial bags shoved beneath branches and weeds as if someone had tried to conceal them, but not quite bury them. His chest tightened. He felt his heartbeat thump in his ears. Bags like this didn't show up here on their own. And this smell, he knew what it meant before he even touched them. His hands trembled as he reached out and pulled one of the bags closer for a better look. The weight told him everything he needed to know. He didn't unzip them. He couldn't. He stumbled back, stumbling over branches and dirt, nearly dropping his phone as he dialed emergency services. "Dispatch, I think there are bodies here," he stammered. "2 bags, deep in the bushes. Please send someone. Please." Officers arrived nearly an hour later, local police followed by detectives who immediately recognized the seriousness of the scene. The bags were removed with extreme care. No one needed to open them to understand the nature of what they had found. What they didn't find was just as unsettling. No identification. No personal items, no clothing, nothing to indicate who the women had been. Everything that could have named them was gone. The area was combed for evidence, but the remote location offered nothing. No cameras, no tire tracks, no footprints that weren't already weathered by days of rain and heat. The news broke slowly at first, then erupted online. 2 women found dead in remote area. Identities unknown. The public speculated. Investigators struggled. Families across multiple counties called in hoping the women were not their missing loved ones. But nothing matched. Whoever did this had ensured one thing with absolute precision. Maya and Ariana were meant to stay anonymous, unknown, untraceable, silenced. By the 3rd day, Ethan knew something was wrong. Maya had never stayed silent this long. Not with him, not with Nia, not with anyone. When she left for the work retreat, she promised to check in. She always checked in. But after her final message, short, strangely phrased, nothing like her usual texts, everything went quiet. At first he tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was busy. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe she was sleeping. But the excuses dried up quickly, and the silence grew heavier by the hour. By the end of day 3, the truth pressed against his chest like a weight he couldn't breathe beneath. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Ethan opened Maya's chat again, rereading her last message. "All good. Talk later." No emojis, no warmth, no voice note, not even her usual shorthand. It wasn't her. And the timestamp, just after the time her flight was supposed to land, felt off. He scrolled up, searching for any clue he might have overlooked. That's when he saw it again. The selfie she sent before boarding. Maya rarely took selfies, but this one was different. A shot of her standing near a private jet, trying to appear casual, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Something about the image felt wrong, forced. He zoomed in, and that's when he noticed it. A unique marking on the tail of the jet, a crest-like emblem with stylized Arabic initials. Not commercial, not familiar, not something that could be dismissed. His pulse began to race. He searched online, typing combinations of words he barely understood. Private jet crest, UAE, Dubai jet markings, Arabic jet symbols. Hours passed. He found nothing. Frustrated, he sat back, staring at the image, willing it to make sense. Finally, he did what he should have done earlier, took the photo to the police. At the station, he explained everything. The strange text, the sudden silence, the work trip that didn't feel like work. He handed them the selfie. The officer narrowed his eyes at the jet's emblem. "We'll run this." They sent the image to aviation analysts who specialized in identifying private aircraft. The response came surprisingly fast. The emblem belonged to Al Fad Holdings, an international conglomerate tied to a wealthy Emirati family known for real estate, shipping, private aviation, and dozens of shadowy subsidiaries scattered across multiple countries. The company had privacy layers so deep that almost nothing about their fleet was publicly accessible. But the emblem was unmistakable. "Where did your wife get on this plane?" the detective asked. Ethan felt a cold shiver run through him. "She told me it was a client's retreat. I didn't know it was this." The detective exchanged a look with another officer, one that told Ethan they recognized the name, not in a good way. Al-Fad Holdings isn't the kind of group that pops up in normal investigations, one of them said carefully. There are complications. Ethan's stomach twisted. Complications, meaning power, meaning influence, meaning people no one wanted to challenge. Ariana's family called the police that same day. She was also missing. Both women vanished at the same time, same weekend, same undisclosed location. The pieces clicked too neatly to be coincidence. A missing persons bulletin went out. Their names were entered into databases. Calls were made. But every lead ended in the same wall. The plane belonged to Al-Fad Holdings. And no one, absolutely no one, could tell the police who had used it that weekend. Ethan felt his world collapsing. He kept staring at the photo. Maya's forced smile. The jet behind her. The emblem that changed everything. He didn't know what happened yet, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. His wife never arrived at any work retreat. She never checked into any hotel. She never attended any event. She got on a plane owned by a man no one wanted to talk about, and she never came back. Once Ethan handed over the selfie, the case stopped being a simple missing persons report. Detectives pulled everything they could from the tail marking and quickly realized they were stepping into a world far bigger than two missing women. Al-Fad Holdings wasn't just wealthy. They were protected by layers of diplomatic shields, offshore accounts, and international influence that made traditional policing nearly impossible. Still, the investigators pushed forward. They dug into aviation records and discovered the private jet had made an unregistered landing at a rural airstrip days before the bodies were found. The timestamp aligned almost perfectly with when Maya and Ariana went silent. The jet departed minutes later without any filed documentation explaining the stop. A red flag immediately. Then came the background checks. Quietly, cautiously, and through channels not meant to be public, detectives found whispers of previous accusations tied to Ryan Al-Majid. Nothing proven, nothing official, but enough to establish a pattern. Complaints from women abroad that disappeared before reaching court. Reports filed, then withdrawn within days. Settlements hidden behind confidentiality agreements. Every time someone tried to push further into his past, records were sealed or vanished behind legal walls. The further investigators looked, the darker it became. Several companies tied to Ryan and his associates were registered in jurisdictions known for secrecy, places where ownership could be hidden, money could be moved quietly, and accountability became optional. Flight logs from the previous months showed dozens of unexplained trips to remote airstrips in different countries, each logged under subsidiaries that existed only on paper. Digging deeper, they found financial trails suggesting money laundering activity, large transfers routed through shell companies, luxury assets purchased under aliases, and private security expenditures that made no sense for a business executive. One detective muttered under his breath, "This isn't one missing persons case. This is a machine." But the moment they attempted to request official records or cooperate with authorities overseas, the resistance began. Emails went unanswered. Calls were redirected. Legal representatives from Al-Fad Holdings sent formal notices reminding the department that their clients were foreign nationals with diplomatic privileges. "They are protected under international agreements," one letter read. "Proceed with caution." The detectives pressed anyway, submitting a formal inquiry. Within 24 hours, they received a response, polite, firm, and unmistakably threatening. Further attempts to obtain private information could violate international law and jeopardize diplomatic relations. Local politicians began calling the station, subtly implying that pursuing certain lines of investigation could trigger political fallout the department wasn't equipped to handle. Foreign lawyers arrived with thick documents, asserting rights, demanding confidentiality, and shutting down every attempt to trace the jet's owners or passengers. It became clear that the people tied to this aircraft weren't simply wealthy. They were insulated, guarded, untouchable. Detectives held a closed-door meeting and laid out the truth. Everything pointed in the same direction, but the path forward was blocked at every turn. Ethan sat in the corner, eyes hollow, listening to words he couldn't comprehend. Diplomatic protection, sealed records, offshore subsidiaries. "We're doing everything we can," the lead detective told him quietly. "But you have to understand, these aren't ordinary suspects. They live in a world where consequences don't reach." Ethan pressed his hands against his face, shaking. Maya and Ariana had walked straight into a circle, surrounded by wealth, power, and absolute immunity. And now the people who took them were being shielded by borders and politics strong enough to erase any trace of what happened. The investigation had begun, but already forces far bigger than the police were working to shut it down. It took days of forensic work before the truth finally emerged. The two women found in the remote brush had no identification, no jewelry, no phones, nothing that could easily tell investigators who they were. Everything that could have connected them to their lives had been stripped away. But DNA cannot be erased. Samples were taken, processed, compared to missing persons reports, and cross-checked through national databases. When the results came back, the confirmation hit the detectives harder than they expected. The women were Maya Collins and Ariana Hill. The moment the news reached Ethan, he felt something inside him tear open. Detectives didn't give details, only the facts required by law, but even those were enough to crush him. They told him Maya had been found in the rural area he had already seen on the news. They told him the condition of the bodies made identification impossible without DNA. They told him she had suffered. Ethan didn't hear anything after that. It was as if the world went silent. The room became a blur. His breathing came in short bursts. His hands trembling uncontrollably as he tried to understand how a woman who kissed him goodbye 12 days ago was now reduced to a file number and a lab report. When he was asked to come in and identify the small handful of personal items that had been recovered, items that hadn't been removed because the killers missed them or because they had fallen off unnoticed, Ethan broke. A bracelet Nia had made in school, a hair tie she always kept around her wrist, the corner of her phone case, cracked and dirty. Ethan stared at the items on the metal table, his vision blurring as his mind fought to reject every piece of evidence lying in front of him. "This can't be hers," he whispered, gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. "This can't be Maya. This isn't real." The detective standing nearby didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Across town, Ariana's family received the same call, the same confirmation, the same unimaginable news. Her sister collapsed before the officer even finished speaking. Her mother screamed into her hands, their home filled with a grief so heavy the walls seemed to hold it like smoke. Two families shattered in the same moment, two women gone forever. The headlines changed immediately. Bodies found near airstrip identified as two missing women. Photos of Maya and Ariana, smiling, alive, hopeful, spread across screens everywhere. But the truth of what happened to them was buried behind sealed reports and redacted statements, because investigators were still blocked at every turn from pursuing the people responsible. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed that night, clutching Maya's bracelet so tightly it dug into his palm. He didn't sleep. He didn't cry. He didn't move. He just repeated the same three words over and over again, barely audible in the dark. "I'm so sorry." But no apology could bring Maya back, and no amount of grief could change the fact that the people who took her were still flying freely above the world, protected, powerful, and untouched. In the first week after the bodies were identified, investigators pushed hard. They reached out to international partners, filed requests, submitted forms, and tried every diplomatic channel available to keep the case alive. But the higher they climbed, the colder the responses became. When the request for cooperation reached Dubai, the reply was immediate and absolute. Ryan al-Majid was not involved in any wrongdoing. They provided no passenger list, no crew records, no flight manifests. They denied the jet made an unscheduled landing. They denied Maya and Ariana were ever on board. They denied everything. And once the denial was issued, the doors began to close. The Sheikh left the United States less than 48 hours later, boarding another private jet under diplomatic clearance. From the moment his wheels lifted off the runway, he ceased existing within the investigation. He was unreachable, unquestionable, protected. The two tattooed men who accompanied him vanished even faster. Their passports were flagged as no longer active, their digital records wiped, no addresses, no employment history, no border logs. It was as if someone had pressed a delete key and erased them from every system that mattered. Detectives tried to push through anyway. They resubmitted requests, escalated through federal channels, and attempted to open a joint investigation with foreign agencies. But every effort hit the same impenetrable wall: political pressure. The message behind closed doors was clear, even if no one said it outright. This wasn't a case the local police department was meant to solve. These weren't suspects they were allowed to touch. The people involved operated at a level where accountability didn't apply. When the final meeting was held, the room was quiet. The lead detective spoke slowly, almost reluctantly, reading the conclusion no one wanted to hear. Due to restricted access to witnesses, lack of jurisdiction over foreign nationals, and absence of cooperation from essential parties, the investigation cannot proceed. Ethan stood in the back, staring through the conference glass door as the words blurred together. He had spent weeks fighting, trying to keep Maya's name alive, pleading for one more lead, one more attempt, one more chance. But now he was being told there would be none. The official statement released to the public was short, cold, and devastating. Insufficient evidence. No details, no suspects, no accountability. The case that had once shaken the community was reduced to a single line in an official report, buried beneath hundreds of other unresolved files. Reporters moved on. The news cycle shifted. Politicians stopped answering calls. And the world forgot two women whose only mistake was trusting the wrong man. Ethan didn't forget. Ariana's family didn't forget. But the system, the one they believed would bring justice, had quietly closed the door and walked away. Far across the ocean, in a world protected by wealth, borders, and immunity, the man responsible continued his life untouched, knowing he would face no consequences. And in the country they called home, Maya and Ariana's case died the same way it began: quietly, painfully, and in the shadows of power. In the months that followed, life did not return to normal. It reshaped itself around absence, two families learning to live with a silence they never asked for. Ethan did his best to hold himself together for Nia, but every day was a battle. The house felt emptier than ever, Maya's voice gone, her presence missing from the routines that once defined their home. Ariana's family was broken in their own way, mourning a daughter who had simply vanished on what was supposed to be a weekend getaway. Two families that had shared birthdays, dinners, and years of friendship were now bound by grief, trying to make sense of something that had no explanation. Some nights, after putting Nia to bed, Ethan would sit alone in the living room, staring at the toys she left on the floor, or the photos of Maya still hanging on the walls. The world had taken everything from him, but he refused to let it take his daughter's future too. He became both mother and father, doing everything in his power to give her stability in a world that suddenly felt dangerous. Months later, Ethan spoke publicly only once. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned in, and Ethan, exhausted, grieving but composed, said the one sentence that became the defining line of the case. Money shouldn't decide who lives and who dies, but in our case, it did. After that, he stepped away from the media completely. He wasn't interested in attention. He wanted truth. Justice. But the truth had been buried under borders, money, and men who lived far beyond the reach of the law. The investigation eventually went cold. Files sealed, leads abandoned, evidence frozen in time. Officially, the case remains unsolved. Unofficially, everyone knows why. Thousands of miles away, in a sprawling estate surrounded by tall gates and quiet gardens, Sheikh Ryan al-Majid continued his luxurious life uninterrupted. New cars, new real estate deals, new guests, new secrets. His world remained untouched, protected by wealth, influence, and an international system designed to keep men like him untouchable. As for Maya and Ariana, their story slipped out of the headlines, disappearing the same way they had, suddenly, painfully, and without justice. If two women can vanish inside a private jet, and the world simply moves on, what hope does justice really have? If you made it to the end of this story, tell us where you're watching from and type, "I'm still here." Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you won't miss the next crime story we uncover.